that this story with the drones that happened recently in Poland is not going away, not yet. It seems like. Of course, I shared my take on that situation, what was happening. I'm quite sure British Secret Services, with assistance of Polish Secret Services, their proxy Kyiv regime, and potentially some other NATO member states, were preparing false flag operation. They were waiting for a relatively large-scale Russian drone launches, and they pre-positioned basically their radio electronic warfare system to influence some of the Russian drones, divert them towards the Polish border, and they did manage to do it, as far as I can tell, successfully. Some of the drones were diverted towards the Poland, and once those drones crossed the border, these Western secret services that were behind this false flag attack took drones that they already had in their hands. Some of them could be Russians that Russia used against Kyiv regime's military and logistical infrastructure, but due to technical issues or something failed and did not explode or did not get smashed completely, these drones were reassembled, and that's why you can see tapes on these freaking drones that I shared photos of, for example, right? Those drones were reassembled, and then when NATO managed to successfully divert a couple of actual Russian drones towards the Poland, they took these pre-planned drones and put in certain positions. Some of them were put some 300 kilometers away from Polish-Ukrainian border, by the way, and that's why Russian Defense Ministry kind of trolled NATO so-called specialists that these drones have no freaking range to reach that far, right? And Russian side was very clear that Russian militaries have no orders or their intention to strike anything on the Polish territory. That was Russian commentary, isn't it? And so, yes, that's what had happened, by the way. British Secret Services, with their alliance with some others, Polish and Kyiv regime and so on. Once some of the Russian drones were actually diverted, they took these drones that they prepared, put in some places. It was looking quite comedic, right? Because I shared some pictures, by the way, when drones, while sort of landing, did not broke in pieces, did not smash their grass on the fields when they landed on the field, by the way, right? There is no trace that these drones smashed anywhere. And I saw some of the pictures, by the way, when drone landed, sort of, if it was a vertical takeoff and landing drone, landed literally without damaging anything on a roof of some freaking construction. And behind this drone was trees that was not damaged, nothing. So it was a very poorly orchestrated operation, but nevertheless, globalist control regimes in Europe are using now this false flag operation to go ahead with their deployment of additional military equipment, additional manpower to the borders of the Russian Federation and the Belarus. And most importantly, they are deploying more and more Air Force. And I have explained why Air Force is especially important, because you know my take on this on further development in this proxy war that West is waging against Russia. I'm quite sure West will launch in short time, relatively short time. I think next phase of escalation with Russia, with the massive launches of the drones and the cruise missiles, long-range cruise missiles, and Kyiv regime just have no enough planes to launch dozens and dozens and dozens of cruise missiles simultaneously. So they will need their assistance from NATO Air Force, right? And that's why this false flag operation with the drones were used by globalist control regimes in Europe to deploy their Air Force. And I will give you some additional information on that. And that Air Force of NATO will participate in these launches of the cruise missiles to strike deep into Russian territory. They will try to make a claim that they did not participate. It was all Kyiv regime, but they're not gonna fool nobody, right? I'm afraid the next phase of escalation is going to be on such a scale that Moscow will retaliate and retaliate with the force, right? On the scale that will force globalists shortly after that to actually come to come to their senses, face the reality, and capitulate. But there is some time to go until that moment. But nevertheless, topic of drones is not going away, as I said. And the Prime Minister of Poland, Tusk, announced that there was another drone that was neutralized over the Warsaw. Some also crazy story here. A drone has been diffused over government buildings in Warsaw. Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk said on the platform X yesterday late evening this happened. The State Security Service has just neutralized a drone that was flying over government building on Parkova and Bauledarskaya streets. 2 Belarusian citizens have been detained, he wrote. According to him, the police are investigating their situation. And so, by the way, either this is some low-level provocation of the Kyiv regime. Number of citizens of Belarus, by the way, were indoctrinated in all sorts of crazy ideology by globalists, by Western propaganda. Number of those individuals, majority of them, are outside of Belarus, in the Baltic states, in Poland, quite a big number of them, right? I remind you that Poland was playing key role. Polish Security Services and citizens of Belarus that they recruited did play key role during an attempt of regime change in Belarus that took place several years ago. So, and the number of these citizens of Belarus actually were recruited by Kyiv regime and had participated in military hostilities against Russia. So Kyiv regime in its hands has a number of citizens of Belarus that were capable of operating with the drones, right? Potentially with ones that even have a battle experience. And I guess Kyiv regime's so-called secret services try to further intensify, escalate situation around this topic of drones, and they told their Belarusian assets to use some FPVs. Most likely it was FPV, by the way. Details not yet are known, at least not yet been reported. Probably it was FPV drone. They were circling with this drone over the government buildings. And probably they did not expect to be arrested, but they got caught. And let's see what police in Warsaw are gonna say. Would they accuse the Kyiv regime of being involved in this provocation? I don't think so. Probably this story will just die down, therefore, right? Anyways, something to just keep in mind. Also, dear friends, Vzgliad newspaper is reporting that Spain, Italy, UK, and Sweden join Operation Eastern Guardian. UK, Sweden, historical enemies of Russia. Italy, somewhat historical enemy of Russia, partially at least. But Spain, what the hell? What the hell, Spain? Don't Spanish leadership have anything else to do but to position its country as an enemy of Russia? What the hell? But anyways, Spain, Italy, Britain, and Sweden have expressed their intention to join NATO's Eastern Guard initiative to strengthen defense on their eastern flank following a drone incident in Poland. Their imminent accession of Spain, Italy, Britain, and Sweden to NATO's Eastern Guard initiative is stated in the statement published on Alliance's website. Excuse me. It is noted that the operation involves strengthening the defensive measures of NATO's eastern flank after incidents with the unmanned aerial vehicles in Poland. NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte announced the launch of Operation Eastern Guard and said that 4 German Eurofighters were ready to provide assistance at an airbase in northeastern Poland, while 3 Czech helicopters had already arrived in the country on September 14. The document also noted that Denmark would provide fighter jets also and air defense frigate, while air defense systems, while Spain and Britain would soon announce their support. Italy and Sweden have also expressed their readiness to provide assistance, and their key point here is aircrafts, by the way. NATO is deploying more and more aircrafts. We had earlier in previous days, and I report about it, statements, publications, and statements from the West that France is deploying Rafale fighter jets. That's what officially is known, but they might deploy some older fighter jets too, like Mirage 2000s, for example, if they still operate with them, right? Also, except Gerbera type, for example, Gerbera type decoys. This Gerbera drone, this decoy will cost I don't know 20 times more than this drone itself. So this is clearly a false narrative that they are using. If they were actually thinking that there are some serious they will deploy radio electronic warfare. They will focus on radio electronic warfare and their drone interceptors, not the fighter jets, but they are specialized drones, right? That build to intercept other drones. But deployment of planes, that definitely is not logical, right? Something else is going on there. But nevertheless, let me give you this report. The UK will deploy Eurofighter Typhoon jets to patrol Polish airspace after Warsaw accused Russia of a large-scale drone intrusion. Prime Minister Keir Starmer announced on Monday the jets will join French Rafales, German Eurofighters, and Danish F-16s. And I said, dear friends, there is a Dutch F-35s also in Poland. Spain just joined this operation against Russia, and Spain will provide probably either F-18s that Spain, I believe, has, or something else, planes that are capable of launching cruise missiles, basically, because that's the idea behind all this operation. So the jets will join French Rafales. And by the way, we should keep in mind that Poland itself has hundreds of planes, from which at least dozens of planes are fully operational, right? So jets will join French Rafales, German Eurofighters, and Danish F-16s in the coming days as a part of NATO's Eastern Sentry operation. The UK government said operating from Coningsby Air Base in eastern England and are supported by Voyager air-to-air refueling tankers. They will monitor aerial threats from the Russia, including drones. According to statement, these aircraft are not just a show of strength, they are vital in deterring aggression. Summer said, accusing Russia of reckless behavior on the alliance's eastern flank. I mean, if anyone is behaving recklessly, it's a globalist and globalist control regimes in Europe, including in UK. We all know that, but nevertheless, this increasing their battle group when it comes to number of the planes, right? To put it mild and simply, they are increasing number of planes that they can use for whatever purpose, right? Rafales, Typhoons, or F-16s, and whatever else. Sweden might come up with their sub planes, right? All these planes are capable of launching cruise missiles, dear friends. And as I said, I'm quite sure NATO is preparing next phase of absolutely unprecedented scale of escalation with Russia. That will start with their that will Unbelievable, man. Am I back? Again, man. Again, these are issues with some technical issues. It's a StreamYard. This time it's a StreamYard, by the way. It has nothing to do with anything else. It's a freaking StreamYard that is doing this stuff. I don't know when I went off. How long I was off? Couple of minutes. My apologies, dear friends, for this technical issue. Unfortunately, I cannot do much about it. I'm trying hard to make sure that our stream is working okay, but time to time there is always some issues with that. But so yes, I was talking about deployment of increase in numbers of fighter jets that NATO has on the borders with Russia and Belarus, and I was talking about what their intent is, and the intent is to prepare the ground for unprecedented scale of escalation with Russia. And I did spoke about this matter for quite a few times before, and a few minutes ago too, but I was offline. I didn't even knew that. Anyways, let me continue with some other news so that I would not have to repeat myself. Well, yesterday I did stated that I did share the information that Polish President Nawrocki signed the official resolution to allow deployment of NATO troops on the Polish territory, and Polish Foreign Minister also went to demand a no-fly zone to be introduced over their Kiev-controlled territory. And on that, former Russian President Dmitry Medvedev and current deputy chairman of the Security Council stated that if NATO will go ahead with some no-fly zone and with whatever provocations, they might actually provoke direct war, open war between NATO and Russia, and they should keep that in mind. Also, I want to share with you this report, dear friends, that according to TASS News Agency, there is no point in talking about the Russia-Ukraine-US summit at this point until the Kiev regime makes a reasonable response to the Russian side's proposals. It is too early to talk about holding a summit in a format of an international meeting between Russia, Ukraine, and United States. This was stated to TASS by Deputy Foreign Minister Sergei Ryabkov. He noted that Russian President Vladimir Putin has previously said in detail everything that was required in terms of contacts with Zelensky. If there is no healthy, sober, reasonable response to these signals of ours, then there are even less grounds to talk about some kind of trilateral format. Ryabkov emphasized answering corresponding questions. So yes, there are going to be no bilateral or trilateral meetings between Putin and Zelensky, or Putin, Zelensky, and Trump, and this is quite understandable. By the way, such a meeting was never actually meant to happen, take place, and Trump is, and will be engaged in a deception operation against Russia. That's what it was all about. Trump is engaged in deception operation against Russia, and I think Moscow knows that. And this statement of Ryabkov, high-ranking Russian diplomat, can be seen as an indicator that no one gonna fool us no more. We had our lessons with the Minsk I agreement, Minsk II agreement, with the topic of NATO enlargement, with the topic of avoiding regime change in 2014 in Kiev. There were many other so-called agreements that Western elites never honored. So therefore, Moscow knows perfectly well that nobody from collective West or elites of the collective West can be trusted now or in a foreseeable future, until societies of the Western countries will reclaim their countries, their destiny, right, and will put some adequate people in the position of elites or the power. It's just too obvious. And on the matter of how dishonest Western elites are, I want to share with you this report, dear friends, that Macron, according to Professor Jeffrey Sachs, admitted that NATO is behind Ukraine conflict. In private, he's saying it openly. We know this, of course, but it is interesting that in private conversation they are talking about it as if this is nothing, no big deal. That's how emboldened these morons are with impunity, because they are coming up with all sorts of provocations. They are doing whatever they want, ruining lives of millions of people in their countries and elsewhere, and they are doing this with their complete impunity. So therefore, they are not even trying no more, at least hard enough to hide their intent. So French President Emmanuel Macron has privately admitted that NATO is the driver force behind the Ukraine conflict. Prominent American economist Jeffrey Sachs has stated Macron, along with their other Western leaders, has repeatedly claimed that Russia launched its military operation against Ukraine in 2022 without provocation, and has insisted that Moscow is solely responsible for the conflict. However, speaking during the foreign policy debate with their Italian daily Il Fatto Quotidiano, Sachs recalled that when Macron awarded him the Legion of Honor in May 2022, the French leader privately told him exactly the opposite of what he says publicly, and admitted that NATO was causing this war. And we have a quote here: "I just want everyone to know this," Sachs said, adding that he is disgusted by the French president. Sachs further condemned Western European leaders, describing them as warmongers who just want to go to war. So we know, by the way, we knew it, that this was a proxy war that NATO is waging against Russia. I mean, the vast majority of our community never ever had any doubts about it. I mean, it was very clear, right? Everyone who actually pays attention to information and tries to find the truth, all of them knew this is a proxy war against Russia. And after all, on several occasions, even publicly, NATO officials or officials from the NATO member states have admitted that, yes, this is a proxy war. For example, former Prime Minister of UK, Boris Johnson, said it publicly, isn't it? That this is our proxy war. And number of other elements. But nevertheless, it is important, I think, that these prominent figures, well-respected worldwide prominent figures like Jeffrey Sachs, they are raising voice and informing public worldwide what is actually going on and combating this propaganda of their Western so-called elites. Hello everyone, I hope you find informative and useful this short clip from main news update, and if so, please click that like button and leave some commentary just about anything. It might help to deal with the algorithm and reach wider audience. And if you like my work in general and want to support to save this media project, you can assist through several ways. You can donate to this project through PayPal platform or Boosty, also with the crypto currencies, or you can subscribe to my Patreon page and page on Boosty, where I have quite a lot of extra content on regular basis. All the links are on this video in description box and in the pinned comment. And of course, many thanks to everyone who already helped and continues to support. Thank you.